Professor Venn'tar stood at the front of the Intergalactic Academy's most prestigious lecture hall, his forearms gesturing proudly toward the containment display. Behind the triple-reinforced plasma shields sat 20 crystallized vials, each containing what he'd spent 3 decades collecting, the most lethal venoms from across the galaxy. "Students, behold." His voice echoed through the chamber, translator chips rendering his words into 47 languages simultaneously. "The deadliest toxins known to sentient life. On my left, the spore widow's neurotoxin from Kepler, 442b. 1 drop can liquefy internal organs in seconds. To my right, the void serpent's blood agent from the Andromeda sector. Causes simultaneous hemorrhaging from every orifice." The class of 200 alien students leaned forward in their anti-gravity seats. This was the course they'd all been waiting for: advanced xenobiology and survival protocols. Pass this, and you could work anywhere in the Federation. Venn'tar's chest sacs inflated with pride. Each sample here represents a creature so perfectly evolved for killing that even our most advanced medical technology struggles to counter their effects. The mortality rate for untreated exposure is, across the board, 98.7%. A tentacle shot up from the middle row. "Professor, what about the Earth samples?" Venn'tar's eye stalk swiveled. "Ah yes, the human exchange program. 3 Terrans had been admitted this semester, sitting together in the back. Odd creatures, these humans. Bilateral symmetry, only 2 arms, no protective exoskeleton. How they'd survived long enough to develop spaceflight remained one of biology's great mysteries." "An excellent question, Morpheus." Venn'tar clicked his mandibles in what passed for a smile among his species. "The Earth samples are particularly fascinating." He manipulated the hollow controls, and 5 additional vials floated forward. Unlike the others, which glowed with bioluminescent warnings, these looked almost disappointingly mundane. From left to right, the inland taipan, the box jellyfish, the blue-ringed octopus, the Brazilian wandering spider, and the cone snail. Each one capable of killing a human in minutes to hours, depending on exposure and location. The human in the back row, a female named Jessica Martinez, raised her hand. She had that irritating habit humans possessed of showing teeth when amused. What did they call it? Smiling. "Yes, Miss Martinez." "Professor, I noticed something interesting about those samples." Venn'tar's skin rippled with curiosity. "Oh, do enlighten us." "They're diluted. Heavily diluted, if I'm reading those concentration markers correctly." She pointed at the display with one of her primitive 5-fingered appendages. "That's maybe 0.01% actual venom. The rest is saline solution." The lecture hall went silent. You could have heard a scale drop. Venn'tar's throat sac deflated slightly. "Well, yes. Standard safety protocol requires we dilute samples that pose extreme handling risks to facility personnel. But the other samples aren't diluted," interjected another human, a male named David Park. He'd pulled up the chemical composition data on his personal holoscreen. "The void serpent venom there? That's full concentration. The spore widow toxin? Also undiluted. But every single Earth sample is diluted to less than 1%. The third human, an older male called Professor Marcus Webb, who was attending as part of a faculty exchange, leaned back in his seat with his arms crossed. That particular posture, Venn'tar had learned, indicated skepticism among humans. "Actually, Professor Venn'tar, I'm curious about something else," Webb said, his voice carrying that peculiar dry quality humans employed when making a point. "What's the LD50 rating on that taipan sample? In its original, undiluted form?" Venn'tar's manipulator digits danced across his data pad. "The median lethal dose for a standard humanoid is approximately 0.025 milligrams per kilogram of body mass. And the void serpent? 0.5 milligrams per kilogram. So the snake is 20 times more lethal by weight." "Precisely, which is why." Venn'tar paused. His 3 hearts began beating irregularly. "Wait, no? That would mean the undiluted Earth venom is significantly more dangerous than your void serpent," Jessica finished, her teeth showing again in that unnerving display. "Which is exactly why you diluted them, isn't it, Professor?" A nervous chittering spread through the alien students. Venn'tar felt his thermal regulation failing. The temperature in his teaching robes increased by 3 degrees. "Now, let's not jump to conclusions," he said, his voice hitting a higher frequency than intended. The Earth samples were collected from a Class 3 death world, so naturally we took extra precautions during processing and storage procedures. Class 3 death world. The question came from a Rigelian student in the front, her scales flushing purple with alarm. I thought Earth was classified as a garden world. It has flowers and sunshine and those small, furry creatures humans keep as companions. Marcus Webb made a sound somewhere between a cough and a laugh. We call those cats. And yes, they're adorable. They're also perfectly engineered murder machines that kill for sport. Venn'tar tried to regain control of his lecture. His skin pigmentation shifted to what his species displayed during stress, which probably wasn't helping his authority. Now class, let's maintain our scientific objectivity here. Yes, Earth is classified as a Category 3 death world, but that designation covers a wide range of planetary conditions and hazard assessments. How wide? Asked a Xenthari student, her bioluminescent spots flickering nervously. Marcus Webb pulled up Earth's official Federation classification on the main display. The collective gasp that followed sounded like air escaping from 200 different types of respiratory systems. Atmospheric composition includes oxygen at 21%, read a Dravian student slowly, his translator struggling with disbelief. That's above the combustion threshold. Your entire planet is one spark away from igniting. Gravity 0.98 standard, another student continued. That's nearly double what most of us evolved under. Solar radiation exposure without magnetic shielding would be lethal to 73% of known species within hours, someone else added. Jessica leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. Oh, it gets better. Tell them about the weather, Professor. Venn'tar's eye stalks drooped. This was not going according to his carefully prepared lesson plan. Earth experiences what humans call weather patterns. Temperature fluctuations, precipitation, atmospheric pressure changes, and various electrical discharge events during storm systems. Electrical discharge events? Squeaked a small pluvian near the front. Lightning, David Park said helpfully. Bolts of electricity that come down from the sky, usually during rainstorms. Sometimes they hit people. Sometimes they hit trees and start fires. Sometimes they just look really cool and we take pictures of them for fun. The pluvian fainted. Its gel-based body made a disturbing splashing sound as it hit the floor. Medical team to lecture hall Gamma 7. Venn'tar said tiredly into his communicator. We have a student down. Standard stress-induced syncope, nothing serious. Jessica stood up, walking down to the display case with the confidence of someone who didn't realize she was casually strolling past enough poison to wipe out a space station. She tapped the glass near the box jellyfish sample. This little guy? Found him while swimming at the beach when I was 12. Almost brushed against it. My dad yanked me away just in time. We went back to swimming the next day at a different spot. You went back. Morpheus' tentacles coiled in on themselves defensively. After nearly encountering certain death, you voluntarily returned to the same activity. Different spot, Jessica repeated, as if this somehow made it reasonable. And we wore protective suits that time. Well, sort of. Mostly just t-shirts. They don't actually help much against jellyfish stings, but we figured it couldn't hurt. Venn'tar was beginning to understand why the Federation's psychological evaluation teams had such a difficult time with humans. Their risk assessment capabilities seemed fundamentally broken. Let me clarify something for the class, Marcus Webb said, standing and walking to join his fellow human at the display. Earth has approximately 87,000 species of venomous or poisonous organisms that we've cataloged. And those are just the ones we've found so far. New ones turn up regularly. 87,000. A Cree student's wing membranes went rigid. How do you survive childhood? Carefully, David called out, then laughed. Actually, not that carefully. When I was 7, I got bit by a black widow spider. Little thing, smaller than my thumbnail. I didn't die, obviously. Got really sick for a week, but I recovered. My mom says it built character. Your maternal parent considered near-death experiences character building. Venn'tar couldn't stop his translator from adding a tone of horror. Well, sure. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? No. Venn'tar's voice cracked across 3 frequencies. What doesn't kill you has simply failed at killing you, which means it might try again. The logical response is avoidance and extreme caution. Huh, Jessica said, examining the Brazilian wandering spider sample more closely. Is that why you've got these samples in a level 5 containment unit? Because by our standards, this is overkill. We've got labs on Earth that keep live specimens of all these species in basic glass terrariums. You keep them alive. Morpheus was gripping his desk so hard his tentacle suckers were leaving marks. On purpose? As in, you deliberately maintain breeding populations of creatures that can kill you. For research, Marcus explained. And anti-venom production. You need the venom to make anti-venom. It's pretty straightforward, really. Anti-venom, Venn'tar repeated slowly. A horrible suspicion was forming in his mind. Tell me, Professor Webb, exactly how does your species produce these anti-venoms? Marcus smiled. Oh no, that was definitely the smile humans made when they were about to say something disturbing. We inject horses with tiny amounts of venom, let their immune systems create antibodies, then extract and purify those antibodies for human use. The lecture hall erupted in chaos. It took Venn'tar a full 10 minutes to restore order. 2 more students had fainted, one had shed its outer carapace prematurely, and the cyan in the back had stress molted all over its desk. The cleaning drones were already filing formal complaints. Let me make absolutely certain I understand this correctly, Venn'tar said, his voice barely steady. You inject another species with the very toxins that can kill your own species, then you extract their biological defense mechanisms, and then you inject that into humans who have been envenomated. That's the basic idea? Yeah, David confirmed. Been doing it for over a century now. Works pretty well, too. Survival rates for snakebites went way up once we figured it out. But horses, a Vrelian student managed to warble. Why would horses participate in this arrangement? What do they gain? Jessica shrugged. Food, shelter, veterinary care. They don't really have a choice in the matter, if we're being honest. We domesticated them about 6,000 years ago. Domesticated, Morpheus repeated, accessing the translation database. His color shifted to a pale, sickly shade. You took another species and genetically modified them through selective breeding until they were dependent on you. Technically, we did that with lots of animals. Cows, pigs, chickens, dogs, cats, sheep, goats. Marcus counted on his fingers. Also wheat, rice, corn, and most of our fruits and vegetables. Domestication is kind of humanity's whole thing. Venn'tar sat down heavily in his anti-gravity chair, which bobbed under the sudden weight shift. 30 years of teaching xenobiology, and he'd never felt so out of his depth. Okay, stepping back from the ethical nightmare you've just casually described, he said, trying desperately to regain some professorial authority. The dilution of these samples remains a practical necessity. Even at 1% concentration, a containment breach could theoretically injure facility personnel who lack natural resistance to Earth-based toxins. Sure, that makes sense, Jessica agreed. Then her eyes got that particular gleam humans displayed when they were about to be helpful. Out of curiosity, Professor, what's your facility's protocol for treating envenomation from these samples? Venn'tar pulled up the medical response documentation on the main screen. Standard Federation procedure. Immediate stasis field application to slow metabolic processes, followed by cellular-level toxin extraction using nanofiltration, and finally accelerated healing through bioregeneration pods. The entire process takes approximately 4 to 6 hours, with a 94% survival rate, assuming treatment begins within 3 minutes of exposure. 3 minutes. David's eyebrows rose. That's pretty tight. What happens if someone gets stung in a remote area? Then they die, Venn'tar said flatly. Which is precisely why these samples require level 5 containment protocols, multiple redundant shielding systems, and dilution to 0.01% concentration. The risk assessment team was quite adamant about safety measures. Marcus Webb had pulled out his personal data pad and was doing calculations. Professor, I'm looking at your facility's medical inventory. You don't stock any antivenoms. Why would we? The treatment protocol I just described handles all known toxins through physical extraction rather than biochemical neutralization. It's far more versatile than species-specific antibody treatments. Right, but it requires expensive equipment, specialized facilities, and has to start within 3 minutes, Marcus pointed out. Whereas antivenom is basically a syringe full of solution. Costs maybe 50 credits per dose on Earth. Can be administered by anyone with basic first aid training. And it buys you hours instead of minutes. Are you suggesting, Venn'tar said slowly, that your species has developed a simpler, cheaper, and more effective treatment for envenomation than the combined medical knowledge of the Galactic Federation. For Earth venoms? Yeah, pretty much. We kind of had to, given that we're surrounded by things trying to poison us on a daily basis. A Kelvorian student raised her crystalline appendage. Professor Webb, exactly how common are venomous encounters on Earth? Depends on where you live, Marcus replied. But globally, estimates range from about 5 million venomous snakebites per year, resulting in roughly 100,000 deaths. That's just snakes, mind you. Doesn't count spiders, scorpions, jellyfish, stingrays, or any of the other venomous creatures sharing our living space. The numbers appeared on the main display, and Venn'tar watched his students' various physiological stress responses kick into overdrive. 5 million bites per year, Morpheus said weakly. And you just continue living there? You don't evacuate the planet or establish protective domes or anything. Jessica laughed. Evacuate Earth? And go where? Besides, 5 million sounds like a lot, but Earth has about 8 billion people. It's actually pretty unlikely any specific individual will get bitten. You've got better odds of being struck by lightning. How much better? Someone asked nervously. Oh, only about 5 times better. We get roughly 1 million lightning strikes per year that hit people or structures they're occupying. The medical team arrived to collect the fainted students. They were going to need a bigger transport drone. Let me see if I have this straight, Venn'tar said, his voice taking on the tone of someone who had abandoned all hope of maintaining sanity. Your planet actively tries to kill you through venomous animals, poisonous plants, electrical storms, temperature extremes, tectonic instability, and atmospheric combustion risks. And your response to this hostile environment was to domesticate other species, develop crude but effective medical treatments, and then just accept these dangers as normal background conditions of existence. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds dramatic, David said. But yeah, basically. What else would we do? Leave, shouted at least 15 students simultaneously. But it's home, Jessica said simply, as if this explained everything. And honestly, once you get used to it, Earth is actually pretty nice. Beautiful sunsets, great food, interesting wildlife. You just have to pay attention and take reasonable precautions. Reasonable precautions, Venn'tar muttered, making notes for what was clearly going to be a very long report to the Academy administration. Your species' definition of reasonable is apparently several standard deviations away from galactic norms. Marcus checked his chronometer. Speaking of which, we should probably mention the rest of the practical exam requirements. Venn'tar's eye stalk shot up. What practical exam requirements? The field study component, Marcus said, pulling up the course syllabus on the main display. Week 14, Practical Assessment. Students are required to conduct observational research on a living ecosystem to demonstrate their understanding of predator-prey dynamics, environmental adaptation, and survival strategies. Venn'tar's 3 hearts skipped beats in a staggered pattern. Yes, traditionally we take students to the preservation park on Centauri 9. Very safe, very controlled. All dangerous species are behind force fields. Students observe from elevated platforms with full protective gear. Right, but the human contingent submitted a proposal for an alternative location, Marcus continued, his tone perfectly casual. We figured since we're already here, and since our planet offers such unique biodiversity, we could host the class on Earth for the practical component. Give everyone a real educational experience. The silence that followed was the kind of silence usually reserved for funerals or moments before explosions. Absolutely not. Venn'tar stood so fast his chair shot backward and collided with the wall. Send my students to a class 3-death world? Are you insane? Do you understand the liability implications alone? The insurance costs would bankrupt the Academy. The lawsuit potential is astronomical. We'd keep everyone perfectly safe, Jessica assured him, which somehow made it worse. We were thinking the Australian outback, maybe parts of the Amazon rainforest, possibly some coastal areas for marine biology observations. A Xenthari student who'd been furiously researching Earth geography let out a sound like a deflating balloon. Australia has 66 of the world's deadliest snakes, 21 of which are found nowhere else. The Amazon contains poison dart frogs, electric eels, piranhas, jaguars, anacondas, and approximately 2.5 million species of insects, many of them venomous. See, great biodiversity, David said brightly. That's what makes it educational. Educational? Educational. Venn'tar's skin had shifted through several colors that didn't exist in standard emotional response charts. Your idea of education is throwing students into environments where death lurks behind every tree and rock. Well, not every tree, Jessica corrected. Some trees are perfectly safe. Others are poisonous to touch, but you learn to identify those pretty quickly, usually after the first rash. Marcus pulled up a detailed proposal document. We've actually put together a comprehensive safety plan. All participants would receive basic wilderness survival training, protective clothing, communication devices, emergency extraction protocols, and of course constant supervision by experienced guides. Experienced guides, Venn'tar repeated. You mean humans who consider a 5 million annual snakebite rate acceptable background noise? Exactly. We know what we're doing. Morpheus had been silent for several minutes. His tentacles coiled so tightly, he resembled a stressed ball of nautilus. Finally, he spoke. Professor Webb, I must ask, what is the survival rate for humans who undergo this wilderness survival training? Oh, it's excellent, Marcus said. Most training courses report 0 fatalities. Most. Well, occasionally someone has an allergic reaction, or encounters something unexpected, or ignores safety protocols and does something stupid. But that's pretty rare. I'd say 99% of participants come back just fine. 99%, Morpheus said faintly. You consider a 1% mortality rate acceptable for educational activities. Actually, that's for the general population doing extreme wilderness courses, David clarified. For supervised academic field studies, the rate is much better. More like 99.9% survival. So only 1 in 1,000 students dies. Well, when you phrase it like that, it sounds bad. Venn'tar had made his decision. Absolutely not. Denied. Rejected. Not happening under any circumstances whatsoever. I will resign before I allow my students to be transported to that nightmare world you call home. Jessica exchanged glances with her fellow humans. That's unfortunate, Professor. Because the Academy Board already approved our proposal. We got the authorization this morning. The field study is scheduled for 3 weeks from now, and attendance is mandatory for course completion. The data pad Venn'tar had been holding clattered to the floor. They what? Marcus pulled up the official approval documents, complete with digital signatures from all 7 members of the Academy Board. To be fair, we did present some compelling educational justifications, and we emphasized the unique opportunity for interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange. The board was quite enthusiastic about the whole thing. The board, Venn'tar said, each word dropping like stones, has never actually been to Earth, have they? Nope, Jessica confirmed cheerfully. We may have shown them pictures of the nice parts. Beaches, mountains, forests. We didn't specifically mention what lives in those forests. This is entrapment. This is education, Marcus corrected. And honestly, Professor, it'll be good for everyone. Your students will learn valuable lessons about adaptation, resilience, and respect for hostile environments. Plus, they'll get to see firsthand why humans are the way we are. A Pluvian student, having recovered from its earlier fainting spell, raised a gelatinous appendage. But if we go to Earth, won't we need special equipment? Environmental suits? Weapons? Armored transports? Just comfortable walking shoes and a good hat, David said. Maybe sunscreen, depending on your species' UV sensitivity. Oh, and plenty of water. Dehydration is actually more dangerous than most of the wildlife. Dehydration is more dangerous than the wildlife, Venn'tar repeated in a hollow voice. On a planet where spiders the size of dinner plates can kill you. See, you're already learning to prioritize threats correctly, Jessica said encouragingly. That's exactly the kind of practical knowledge this field study will provide. Venn'tar looked at his class. 200 alien students representing 40 different species, all of whom had traveled across the galaxy to study at the Federation's premier xenobiology program. All of whom were now staring at him with various expressions of terror, fascination, and morbid curiosity. Show of appendages, he said tiredly. How many of you actually want to go to Earth for this field study? To his absolute horror, about 60% of the students raised their various appendages, tentacles, wings, and sensory stalks. But why? He asked the universe at large. Why would you volunteer for this? A brave Calvorian student spoke up. Because if humans can survive there, maybe we can learn how. And that knowledge might be valuable someday. Plus, added another student, it sounds kind of exciting. Scary, yes. Potentially lethal, definitely. But also exciting in ways that controlled observations from behind safety barriers just aren't. Venn'tar looked at the three humans standing near his display case of diluted venoms. They were smiling again, showing those disturbing amounts of teeth, looking pleased with themselves. I want it on record, he said, pulling out his official recording device, that I oppose this plan completely. When students start getting bitten, stung, poisoned, or otherwise traumatized, I will be filing complaints with every oversight committee in the Federation. Fair enough, Marcus agreed. And just for the record, we're probably not going to let anyone actually get hurt. Probably. Well, it is Earth. Sometimes things happen, but that's part of the learning experience. As the class filed out, buzzing with nervous excitement about their upcoming field study, Venn'tar stared at his carefully curated display of diluted Earth venoms. Samples he'd taken such pride in collecting, behind safety measures he'd considered completely adequate. Now they just looked like a warning he should have heeded. 3 weeks until they departed for Earth. 3 weeks to update his will, increase his insurance coverage, and prepare formal apologies to the families of students who might not return. It builds character, he muttered sarcastically to himself. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Humans are absolutely insane. Behind him, the boxed jellyfish sample seemed to pulse with what might have been malicious agreement. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.